Well, the time is just gone 12 minutes past 9 as we continue with news and views on Solar Media this morning. If you have just tuned in, we welcome you to the show. Our listeners, our viewers on the various platforms of Solar Media, One Nation 88.9 FM out of Polokwane. We welcome you to the show this morning. Now, still to come, we're looking at the war in Ukraine and the first anniversary. The question is a year down the line, will this war end this year against the global consequences of this war? Also, taking a look at the Turkey Syria emergency earthquake appeal with Al Imdad Foundation. And earlier on, we spoke with Islamic Relief. Looking at the horrific statistics and how, with the also further quakes of 6.3 and 5.8 magnitude that struck the southern province of Hatay earlier this week. And we'll be taking a look at Minister Naledi Pandor briefing the media on the outcomes of the AU summit. But right now, we're going across, focusing on the 1 year anniversary of what has been playing out between Russia and Ukraine. We are joined this morning by the Press-Attaché of the Embassy of Russia to South Africa, Alexander Arefiev. Alexander, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yes, we've already seen so much being said, so much being written, analysis being done on the last year on this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And we see a lot of predictions that are being made in terms of how much longer will this conflict take place, considering that this has had serious consequences, not only for Russia and Ukraine, but for the entire world.
Yes, indeed, it had consequences, and if I may add, well, these consequences echoed across the globe due to the efforts of our Western partners, so-called partners, because the West is doing everything it can to make it war longer and make the consequences for the entire world graver. With their constant weapons supplies, with their constant military support for Kiev regime, and introducing sanctions. Not just against Russia, but other countries as well, and threatening other countries with sanctions if they continue doing business with Russia, or any country for that matter that the collective West doesn't seem like friendly towards it. So yes, the West is balancing the world model of normal relations, and that's what it's been doing for this entire time, even long before the conflict in Ukraine started.
Yes. Now, clearly, this year has meant a lot for Russia. It has had consequences for Russia as well. And when you speak about the West and the West, saying that a victory would be about weakening Russia and as what they term as an aggressive imperialist state.
Well, I would like to point your attention to the fact that the West only he puts all the bets, puts everything on military victory, Russia's military defeat. Well, depending on how you look at it. So this only means that the West has zero interest whatsoever with regards to diplomatic resolution of the conflict. So it has been so since 2021, because I remind you that late in 2021 in December, Russia introduced mutual guarantees draft agreement, and we submitted this to the Western capitals. We wanted to resolve all the issues with regards to Ukraine and NATO peacefully, but what we got in response was nothing more than arrogance and complete disrespect to Russia's position and Russia's security concerns. So as far as Russia stands, as far as Russia is concerned, this conflict would never taken place if the West just took a serious look into what we were proposing. So we basically were left with no choice. And yes, the West turned into real warmongers. So even the top diplomats, like EU top diplomat Joseph Borrell, he constantly urges for continuing fighting. So this is top diplomat, mind you. So the West has no interest in peaceful resolution. They want conflict to go on because, some Western companies directly benefit from this conflict. So the main beneficiary is Washington, and as long as Washington wants this conflict to go on, it will go. It will go on, unfortunately, causing more destruction, causing more losses, causing more casualties, and so on and so forth. So the Kiev regime, unfortunately, in terms of peaceful resolution, it's not acting independently on the international stage. It's completely dependent on what on its Western masters' will. And their Western masters' will is go on fighting, regardless of casualties, regardless of everything, just go on fighting. So
Yes,
this is the grim reality.
of course, Alex, there are a lot of global agendas that are playing out, and one cannot rule that out. And that is the reason why you're saying that a diplomatic solution is proving to be extremely difficult or even impossible at times. Just looking at Russia, looking at Russian society, and the impact this war has had on Russian society.
You mean what is the impact of the conflict on Russia's society?
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, if we speak about the economic consequences, I mean, we're mainly focusing on the sanctions here. Well, just a quick brush here. So, well, I can say that, well, Russia does not feel the pinch of the sanctions. Of course we do, but we are adapting, and our economy proved to be strong enough to withstand this, well, unprecedented pressure from the Western countries. I mean, from the collective West and other countries who joined the sanctions regime against Russia. In terms of well, other effects, well, I can say that Russia's society is galvanizing because, and it re-energizes its will, because we understand in Russia that the West is planning to weaken us, well, to put it mildly, or destroy our country, because they said it out loud. We have no illusion with regards to Western plans with regards to Russia. And we have no illusion that the Kiev regime is deeply plagued by the Nazi ideology, and this, for Russian society, cannot stand. This is especially aggravating in the light that Russian people and Ukrainian people, two brotherly peoples, once fought Nazism together and once defeated Nazism together. So this is that much more heartbreaking for us to see Ukrainians succumb to Nazi ideology thanks to Kiev regime. As our president said in his latest address to the Russian Federal Assembly, we're not fighting the Ukrainian people. Ukrainian people became hostage of the Kiev regime and its Western masters. So the real warmongers are in the West, and Russian society understands that, what the stakes are and what we're fighting for.
Well, Alexander, what you're saying is very true because we've seen this in the past. We've seen what has happened with the invasion of Iraq as well, where we've seen, Sunni Shia issue that is playing out right now, where these people had coexisted and lived peacefully until the invasion had taken place, and suddenly there is this great divide. And when you talk about this brotherly relationship between Ukraine and Russia, but also coming back to within Russia, and there have been reports that thousands of Russians have actually fled, and the encouragement of mass public protests in a hope that these public protests will translate into support against the Russian establishment, against Vladimir Putin, and also looking at possibly a change of government in Russia. Is that a reality, or is that an agenda that could possibly be playing out?
Well, the West tries everything it can to destabilize Russia because, well, as I said, its intent is clear, and it's clear to Russians. So they weren't. Well, how do I put this? They would try to do this, but as I said, Russian society knows what we stand for and knows what the West stands for. So I don't think it's a reality that any public protest will topple the government somehow. No, I'm guessing that's not going to fly for our Western counterparts because, well, as I said, I already gave an answer to that. I'll put it that way. We just know what we're fighting for. We just know what the West stands for, what it wants to do with Ukraine and to Russia. Because if someone is still under illusion or misconception that West cares about Ukraine, no, it doesn't. It doesn't care about Ukraine. Doesn't care about anyone for that matter, except for itself. So the Washington is eagerly willing to sacrifice the industrial power of its European allies, while just by making them severing their bonds with Russian economy and Russian energy sector, just to achieve its political goal. So it can't. I can't say that they care about Ukraine, but in this regard, so the West will just keep pushing Ukrainians to war. Well, they will fight Russia till the last Ukrainian, as we put it back in Moscow and other cities of Russia. So
And
no, but they will try to destabilize the world. They've been doing this for quite some time. Look at what NATO done to Libya. They destroyed a sovereign country. Look what they did to Yugoslavia. They destroyed a sovereign country. Look what U.S. did to Iraq. You already mentioned Iraq. Due to invasion of U.S. forces to Iraq, only 1 million civilians died. 1 million civilians died.
yes, Alexander, let's just look at, for instance, the European Union, and because Russia has been part of the EU, and there have been those that hold the view that with what has been playing out between Russia and Ukraine, that we are going to start seeing a changing EU, because we know the European Union has been supportive of the United States of America in its support for Ukraine.
Well, you're asking if there is any indications that EU will change its position.
And yes, in fact, just looking at Russia, its position with the European Union, and are we going to be seeing a different European Union emerging as a result of what has been playing out?
Well, it's hard to predict whether it's going to be a new European Union. I'll just point out that Russia is not part of EU. We're just part of larger geographical European region. So, well, as our minister said, there are forces within the political forces within EU that understand that going on with the support of the Kiev regime is folly. I'm not an expert in European affairs to give you like an expert analysis of what's going to happen. Well, we do hope that the common sense will prevail eventually over this blind political loyalty to Washington. We can only hope we would achieve that, because the developments in Ukraine, especially when it comes to Nazi ideology, we all know what happened last time when Nazi ideology flourished in Europe. We ended up in World War II, the most destructive war in the history of humankind. Further indulging of the Nazi Kiev regime, it won't lead us anywhere anywhere near prosperity and peace. This is a very dangerous game, and we do hope that our European counterparts do understand that. And there are certain red lines they won't cross, because as I said, it's a very dangerous game. I believe it's too early to say that EU is going to change or not, and to what extent it will change. But we can only hope that common sense will prevail.
Yes, and just coming and looking at the South African position, and I know South Africa has been criticized, and you are based here in South Africa. In terms of South Africa, its neutral position that it has adopted, and we've also seen recently the military exercises that have been carried out in South Africa. Where would this actually leave a country like South Africa in the position that it is adopting as far as this conflict is concerned?
Well, again, I'm not commenting on behalf of South African government or South African country. South African people, I would like to say. So, South Africa is a sovereign state, and when it comes to the military drills that they're currently having with our Chinese partners and friends, so these Russia, China, and South Africa, as three completely sovereign states, decided to host a joint naval drills, and that's our sovereign right. Our Western partners hold drills. Well, they think that they can hold drills whenever and wherever they like, but they're just displeased when someone else does that without their approval. But as West's approval to hold anything or any event of any nature, as long as it's complying with international law, and it's in full compliance with international law. I mean, those naval drills. And as for South Africa's position, We can only extend gratitude for the balanced position of South Africa, because siding just I'll give you the contrast with the EU's position. So EU and US, they no longer even they can no, even longer pretend that they're going to be a mediator in any diplomatic process that might come in future, because they sided with one side of the conflict. They're no longer neutral. So this is not a path to peace. They decided to enter the conflict. They supplying, they stoking the flames of those conflict. So this is no way close to mediating, or their position does not contribute to peace in any possible way. Because I'll just remind you with what happened in Turkey in early 2022 in March, when we were about to start the true negotiations about the peaceful resolution of Ukrainian conflict. But no, Kiev regime sabotaged every single initiative that has been on table. Russia, as a gesture of free will, it even withdrew forces from Kiev capital. Kiev rushed to declare it a victory of some sort, which just moved the troops away from capital as a gesture of free will. But no, they declared a military victory. They scrapped the entire negotiation process, and we get back what we are, to fighting and shooting. So this proves further that the West has no intent to peace. But when it comes to positions of other countries, neutrality, or this balanced neutral position, this is a good start for peaceful resolution. So this is a common ground. We're closer to peace on this position than that's worshipped by the West.
Alexander, how concerned are you, and how concerned is Russia on the impact that this war is having, particularly looking at poorer countries, looking at Africa, looking at African economies that have linked very, very strongly with Russia through food imports, through tourism, and the like as well. And, looking at South Africa as well, we are part of BRICS, Russia and China, and clearly there are concerns because on a social level, on a socio-economic level, we see food shortages, we see hunger on the increase as well, and I'm sure that is of major concern.
It is a matter of concern. Of course, it is a matter of concern. Well, Russia has long been developing and enhancing its friendly relations, brotherly relations with African nations. So we take it close to heart. I can say that. So again, the West, in its pure double standards manner, they introduced sanctions that disrupted the supply chains and disrupted the trade routes across the globe. And now they put all the blame on Russia, that Russia started the conflict in Ukraine. Not the conflict in Ukraine itself provoked the humanitarian and food crisis, and putting the poorest countries in danger. No, the sanctions did. The sanctions did. No one forced West to put the sanctions on. First of all, and moreover, these sanctions are illegal in the first place. It's not according to international law. The states cannot introduce sanctions just on in the blink of an eye, just on a whim. But the West did just that, and that's putting the poorest countries at risk. Well, I can say that Russia is ready to supply the fertilizers and provide the poorest countries with food. We are cooperating with the UN food program in this regard. So we do supply some of the humanitarian aid from our part. So we put our share into this, and there are mechanisms that we can address those issues, like the upcoming Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg. I'm sure if our African partners and friends will voice this concern, will give us a detailed insight into the situation, and this is a platform for a frank and open discussion. I'm sure we can figure something out. Because it is not. Russia stands for multipolar world, where the regions of the world, countries of the world, are free to speak their mind, are free to stand to their position, have the fair chance of cooperating and benefit from mutual cooperation based on understanding. So, and Russia Africa Summit is one of those platforms when we can reach such understanding. So, yes, as you mentioned, it is a matter of concern that the poorest countries are endangered because of the irresponsible sanctions policy pursued by the West. It is a matter of concern, and we're ready to work with our African partners to resolve this issue. So, and yeah, I guess this is it. It's just
Yes,
one
and
of the yes. Sorry. I just recalled that recent one of the recent articles in the German language newspapers called Express. One of the least recent developments in this field were that the reports that the grain, which was supposed to go to the poorest countries under the Black Sea grain deal, were instead supplied to Spain in order to feed pigs. So this is the modus operandi of the West. It would rather feed pigs than help those in need. But as I can say, we can resolve this situation. We can think over a solution. We can work a solution.
yes, and just finally, how much longer can this war be sustained? Because there are those who hold the view that we are in for a long haul, and we are looking at a good few years ahead in terms of this conflict. Just your thoughts, Alexander?
Uh, Again, hard to predict. Hard to predict. Well, as far as Russia is concerned, we would rather not start a special military operation at all if our security concerns were duly addressed. We could figure a diplomatic solution. Um, it's hard to predict. I'm just not trying to like falsely encourage that it's gonna like last not gonna last long, or on the contrary scare the audience or just depress the audience with the news that it's gonna last longer. It's hard to predict because conflict is still raging on. The West is still inventing of new ways to prolong this conflict or push other countries into this conflict. We're doing everything we can to make it shorter, to make it end, because when Russia intervened, we need to understand that Russia intervened to stop the war that the Kiev regime has been waging against the Donbas region all this time.
Mm,
We didn't come to start the war. We came to stop it. So we would rather, of course, the war, the desire for peace is natural for humans. We understand that. Same goes for Russia. We also want peace, but peace on the conditions of mutually acceptable decision, a mutual acceptable solution, diplomatic one, and not just Russia be defeated, destroyed, and split up into various countries as the West plans to do so. No, it's not acceptable for us, of course. But well, everything eventually comes to the diplomatic table, and I'm pretty sure that in the future we'll do see that. It's not going to be forever, that's for sure.
Well, Alexander, I must say thank you very much for that and taking time out of your busy schedule, being with us this morning here on Salam Media and unpacking what you have and providing us with an update. We wish you all the best. Please take care.
Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Alexander Arefiev, Press-Attaché of the Embassy of Russia, with us this morning on the first anniversary of the conflict and the war between Russia and Ukraine. We're going to go for a quick break. Our focus will be on Turkey, Syria emergency earthquake appeal with the Al Imdad Foundation.